broadcasting live from the Bocam. Oh yeah. Woo! Every time I do that, I swear it's like, oh. I feel like I'm playing in high school again.
So this painting behind me is an oil on canvas painting, and it's titled Angels Raft in the Desert, and it was made this summer in 2019. And it's actually titled after my husband, Angel Fernandez, and this piece references some of the work we've been doing out in the Terlingua area on some property that we bought after we fell in love with the Big Bend region of Texas. So my paintings have been abstract paintings inspired by landscape for about 18 years now. And I really like when I'm painting to communicate a sense of space and atmosphere and elements that will remind us of landscape, but at the same time draw attention to the flatness of the canvas, the physicality of the paint, mark making, gesture, and some of those formal qualities. I work from memory primarily, and I think about really many landscapes I've visited, and I've just come off of a summer sabbatical grant that I got from Baylor University, where I'm a professor of painting, and I traveled to Montana to Glacier National Park, and I was contrasting that with the southwest region of Texas. So, and for years now, many of my paintings are about multiple memories really sewn together of experiences with sublime landscape. So, you know, there may be a part of the painting that could look like a lake. You know, maybe you can see a lake and a reflection, and you might think about water, and then other areas, you know, might hint at a mountain shape or clouds or sky. And then this painting in particular references some exploration my husband and I have done with our children in the desert using fabric. So this red, and there's almost an elongated figure here, is a reference to some other video pieces and sculpture that we've worked on together. Magnificent Tempest, I guess it was 2 years ago. And that was really an important about, landscape and expressive qualities in the paint. And that's an example of actually a lake in Minnesota that I visited. So my story, kind of behind how I got interested in abstract landscape painting is that when I was a young child, I'm just going to kind of click through these and you can sort of look at them live while I just tell a story here. And hopefully you can see, even though the one on the right is really loose and maybe if that image wasn't there, you wouldn't think it came from a landscape, but it actually came from this inspiration of the horizon line in the water. So anyhow, some background is that I grew up painting. I had a great aunt Thelma who first taught me to paint when I was so these are just inspiring images here that I took on a trip, but my aunt got me learning how to paint when I was, really 7 or 8, and I was doing still lifes. She did landscape painting, so I did landscape painting. I came from Pennsylvania, and actually this painting, is there a little pointer function on this? Here again? Does it point? Oh, that's the middle point, I think that's a red light. Oh, here it is. There. So right here is a little barn that was actually across the road from where my grandparents lived. So anyhow, I did lots of paintings, of the landscape in Pennsylvania. I just grew up painting a lot. But I was also in dance. I was in dance, and I took dance all through when I was a kid. And that's important because of these big gestural lines and movement that you see in the painting. I always try to remember to tell you about the dance part. So anyhow, my father was an engineer, so he got me learning how to draw accurately when I was young. I worked with him in a factory for a while, so sometimes in some of the paintings you'll notice, machine-like or even references to man-made things, so those come from my dad. So anyhow, I was painting, and then I went to college and I actually went for a major in dance. So my family was really concerned because, what was I going to ever do with, a dance major? And then I decided that I actually was going to double major in painting. And, my grandfather just about died because he was a dancing painter. The prospects for that seemed really low. So, and what had happened was, as I was telling you, when I was younger, I had painted and painted and painted, and, but then I actually did not have a very good art teacher in high school. And I think it, steered me in the other direction of doing dance. And so anyhow, but then when I got to college and I walked through the art building and I saw the people in the painting, the studio painting, I thought, I have to do that. So, against everybody's, advice, I decided I would double major in painting. And, I actually ended up completing a degree in dance and painting. And then from there I went on and, just threw myself wholeheartedly into painting. My joke is I love dance and I really love choreography, but I like the fact that I can wake Red up whenever I want to. I don't have to worry about, performing in Yellow's piece. I don't have to worry about, if purple and, blue are getting along today. So I really like being able to control the paint and, I actually really love people, but it was difficult, to work with others in that way in choreography. So I ended up finding that I was a much stronger painter than dancer and went that way. But I think that the movement and the music and lots of things that, because I was in dance from when I was, 5 years old until I was 23. So certainly it had an impact on how I, thought about things. So anyhow, I'm going to go back to this one for a second. This is from about, let me think, 2007-ish maybe. And so, I made all those paintings of actual landscapes growing up, right? So I want you to understand that I painted portraits and did figurative stuff and landscapes. And then when I got to college, and I finally got through all my prerequisites, and the professor said, you can do whatever you want. I didn't know what to do, right? It was finally I had the freedom, and it was well, what am I going to paint now? I was I don't know. And I remember trying so hard and being frustrated. I think I cried one day, and the professor said, and I was thinking sketches, and and he said, well, what are you thinking about? And I started describing, just color. And he said, well, that's enough. If you're thinking about color and paint and marks, so just do that. So I started making just abstract paintings, and really well, I have to, do something a little different than that. So basically, then I took that trip to Minnesota, which were some of those first pictures I showed you, and I took a book to read. I was in college then, in undergrad, and I never read a page of the book. All I could do was look at the landscape. And I think really for me, if you remember, I grew up in Pennsylvania, it was pretty, like mountainous there, and I think a little claustrophobic, frankly. And I really liked going out to the ocean and seeing the space. And I think when I went to Minnesota, to those boundary waters, and I got to sit and just look at that space, I just loved it. So from that point on, all of my paintings have tried to integrate the things I liked about Richter, the physicality of paint, the expression, people like de Kooning, the abstract expression of Cy Twombly, but integrating that and movement along with senses of space and using memory, atmosphere, and qualities to remind us of landscape. So that's kind of how I got started. But I'm going to really show you a lot of paintings. And then I started collaging, like I said, in about 2006. Not all the paintings, but it was funny. I had photos. I always have photos around that I would kind of look at because remember, a lot of it comes from memory, And I actually had a student who left some pictures, and I kind of thought, oh, I want to try to collage, and I started sticking the pictures in the paint. And I thought it was interesting that they would create another space within the painting. So they were like this little piece of realism, this little pocket of realism, and I thought it would be really interesting if I could, kind of merge them into the abstract painting so that from a distance, you just thought it was an abstract painting, and then as you looked at it longer, you noticed these things. So this is one of the earlier ones too. You can see there's actually like a ship, and these were hot air balloons, and then some landscape photos themselves. So really, since about 2006, I've been, and this one has collage, been, making some that have collage and some that don't. So this one does not. And this is named, a lot of them are named for my children. I have 6 children. I have 5 girls and 1 boy. The boy's a baby. He's not quite 1 yet, and the oldest is 11. So, and I always tell everybody too that I was an only child, and I was always lonely. So I'm not anymore. And I really love all the energy and all the chaos. And they travel with me, wherever I go. And it was wonderful. So this one is Father the Machine. If you remember, I told you my dad was an engineer, and I grew up in working when I was, like a young teenager, even in my 20s, in the factory. So these are actually machine parts. And he built machines. So I would call him and say, send me pictures of machines, because I really like that contrast. And so anyhow, then these were landscapes from the northern, actually Saginaw area in Fort Worth. So double horizon lines. So horizon lines you can often find in my paintings. Here's another one that has like ships and boat forms and airplanes as these like specific things to think about. I'm going to just go fast because I just want to get to the end. So you see little photos there. These are just paint. So I like to just go back and forth with paintings that are just paint, and then paintings that include the collage. I show with Art Space 111 Gallery in Fort Worth and Mary Tomas Gallery in Dallas. And since I'm tenure track at Taylor, I need to do lots of shows, really wherever I can get them. So I do a lot of jury shows too, which is so fortunate to be here. So again, and you can see I'll explore some themes like this one. I took pictures of, because as time has gone on, my collage process went from just starting with kind of found pictures that were hanging around to then starting to be really specific where I'll travel just to take the photos that I'm going to use in the painting. So I think some of these actually came from Seawolf Park in Galveston of like torpedoes and ship parts. And so again, you can see the horizon line. So here's twins. I was pregnant with my twins when I made this, and I thought that it kind of looked like two specific forms, even though they were different. So a lot of times, even in these really abstract ones, I'm kind of referencing maybe a boat. Like you think, oh, maybe it kind of looks like a boat, or maybe it looks like stormy skies. Those are all things I'm thinking about. And I've always thought about the fact that like memory is always changing and it's really ambiguous. And I've enjoyed abstract painting because of all the things it can suggest And of course, some of them are less, some of them are more. Sometimes I focus on the horizon line, sometimes I focus on the things breaking up the horizon. This one is here, right? So this one came from photos my father sent me of, it was like a takedown of a coal chute in Pennsylvania. So they were like taking down this, equipment. There was this big pipe. So anyhow, I made another painting with pictures, and then I made this one. And this is actually kind of a pipe I was thinking about, looking at boat forms, and it kind of looks like maybe an airplane. But if you're seeing other things, that's okay too, because I really like the idea that there could be multiple interpretations, of the paintings. I'm just going to keep going. There's lots of them. And a lot of these were part of that magnificent Tempest series. I was also, reading Moby Dick and thinking about, ships and boats. And around this time, I went out to Niagara Falls and, was looking at the atmosphere of Turner and those Joseph Mallard, William Turner's work. I really like what Turner does. So a lot of them, again, referencing that kind of atmosphere. And what I found was I'm really drawn to landscapes that have, senses of space, power, maybe even terror. Like I enjoyed, the enormity of Niagara Falls. And then, I guess that was about 3 years ago, I traveled to Niagara Falls and then down along the border area of Texas, South Padre Island, and then over to Big Bend. And, really fell in love with Big Bend. And my husband is a sculptor, and he's, from Mexico, so he immigrated here when he was a child. And so, of course, we've had lots of discussions, about the border, and he has family that are here and other family there, and then coming back and forth. So that's come to be something that we're discussing in work that we actually do together. So some of the newest paintings, so these are from about, 3 years ago. And these are some shots of the show at Art Space 111 Gallery. But really, I had a professor once who did a slide talk, and she just showed all these images real fast. And I liked it. And, oh, look at this is interesting. I like it. It's this one version, and then, I changed it. So I just thought somehow you might be thinking, how do you know when you're done, And sometimes it takes a while. So it was like this, and then it became that. And more specific, looking more like maybe a boat perhaps, right? So anyhow, we were, exploring this Southwest desert area, and I had, never been to Big Bend. I ironically had 2 painting professors in undergrad at Kutztown University who were both from Texas. What are the chances, right? Like both of my professors were from Texas. And one of them, I love both of them. This is another one with the raft reference. All right, thinking about people on a raft on a journey. So I have romantic interests in the work, okay? Romanticism. But anyhow, one of the really influential painting professors I had in undergrad, he always talked about Big Bend, and he went out there and he had painted himself. So really and truly, when I finally got out to Big Bend, and that's what some of these are really referencing, the Big Bend area, and the sunsets and just the power and the beauty and everything out there. I really cried when I saw it. And I said to my husband, no joke, I said, I think winter has to die in the desert. Like, I just loved it, I just really loved it out there. And since then, we've bought 40 acres. This is called Big Bend Falls. And this is actually me thinking about, the Big Bend landscape, but also that journey to Niagara Falls, because I like this idea of comparing and contrasting different sublime landscapes, different really impactful landscapes. And again, since my work is about, memory and experience and movement, I like to fuse them together, often with, several references within one painting. So we have, things to me that are like ship kind of forms or sails, and maybe, thinking about Niagara Falls here. And then even obstacles, whether it's like fences or ladders, these swing forms that kind of come in. These are little studies. And these have all been from really the last 2 years or so. So some of them are more ship-like, but then they're often still referencing, desert. These are smaller studies with collage. That's funny. This is like from my laundry room, so that's kind of an anomaly. I took some pictures from just around the house with the kids. It was like that's Snow White. It's Snow White's head, the doll, with some like pencils and paint. So I do, my children are really important with everything. And some people have said, well, this was the paintings this year. How do you take them with you? Why do you take them with you? That kind of thing. And I think that, they really intensify the whole experience. Standing there at Niagara Falls with like a 2-year-old or a 3-year-old and all the kids, and but they're part of me. They're part of my life, and if I'm going to go experience these landscapes, I want them with me. So part of it is the journey to these places, and we drive. We have like a 15-passenger van, so that we can take all the kids, and the art, and the dog, and my husband's sculptures. If we could do, there's a piece we did together. So this is one of my paintings that was actually in the Hunting Art Prize, which is a really nice show in Texas, and we cut it up and made it into a sculpture. My husband does these soft sculptures, and here's another experimental one where he's actually sewing pieces on. So anyhow, he would be here except that 2 of my little ones were sick. So this is just, there's one of the pieces. So I have just some installation shots here, just paintings here. This is a show he and I did together. So Angel Fernandez, this is me. And then we have big studios in the Fort Worth area. So these are installation shots of his work and my work. And we've done a bunch of curating together. So anyhow, I couldn't do any of this without him. Too bad he's not here to hear me complimenting him. Anyhow, here's back to, you can see some collage imagery here. I think this painting is here in the show. These are some more. So tires for Sisyphus. This is part of this newest kind of thought that I'm having. And I'm sure since you guys are right here on the border, you've seen all kinds of things that I haven't even. But when we went out to Big Bend that first time, and when we were driving, along the border, I started noticing tires, along the side of the road that, get you all, you're familiar with this, right? Tires that they drag to smooth out and look for footprints. So anyhow, my husband and I just thought that was really interesting. And, the fact that something so, like, archaic and almost crude is still being used. So anyhow, I photographed a bunch of those. And so the tires have some interesting symbolism for me and my husband. So here's one with those, so ships, trains, some collage imagery of areas in the Presidio area. There's the tires. So here's some Niagara Falls pictures. I threw in some pictures, to show you things that inspire me. The traveling we did. That was out at the Great Lakes. This was one of those trips where we went out to Niagara Falls and Big Bend. I thought it might be interesting for you to, keep seeing what are my references. Sadly, I didn't get a chance to put my most recent trip out to Montana and Big Bend for the show, and I didn't get the Montana pictures in here yet. But this painting behind me really references St. Mary's Lake there. This is where my husband and I work, our studios, does some curating. So these are other people. Some of our pieces are in here, but showing you some of the stuff. There's dancers, so we do all kinds of crazy things. And then these are back to some studies. So I actually do some plein air studies. So again, thinking about abstraction, and for me, abstraction comes from, the essence of something. So it starts with something. And, I spent time out in Big Bend just doing some, really little acrylic paintings, looking at the rocks, looking at the mountains, looking at the space. And then I feel like I better digest it for it to, come back out in the paintings. So here's examples. This has, of course, the tires and other collage elements. It's really pretty big. I forget the size, but it's maybe a little taller than the one back here, not quite as wide. So a bunch of these are in somewhat favor right now. But here's the sail, right, of the ship. But this is actually the landscape of our property that we bought in Big Bend. So spoiled for Mother's Day, I got my husband to buy me 40 acres of it, but it's off-grid, there's no water, there's no electricity. these I just made in spring, so these are really new now. But this is back to more of a reference to the desert. And all right, this is the Churlugua area, so the memorial is there. This was almost in the show, but we cut it. We just didn't have enough room for everything, right? And so this is a view of our property, that we don't, we're going to figure out a way to go out there somehow. And these are just some more shots from this recent trip out that I took when we were in Big Bend. So again, I'm really sorry I don't have the Glacier National Park pictures here. I would have, but I had 2 children start with a stomach bug this morning, and it just kind of slowed me down. So anyway, but there's some kids, and this is one of my husband's sculptures, which is actually a ball of tires. So he's been doing these pieces where he's been pushing and pulling elements out on the property, in the desert, making marks and drawing. So then I'm of course part of the drone video. So then I started thinking about including, images and references to that in the work, which the painting on the front wall when we come in, do you remember the one that has this big red cloth looking? That comes from this, experience and performance and, video piece that we made. And it was actually a reference to the girls with the fabric out in the land. So that's something, there it is. See, this is a real reference to that painting out there. So anyhow, this is, kind of in the direction I'm heading, but I'm going to continue with, the paint paintings and thinking about, landscape. I just feel like forever I'm going to be able to just look and think about these varied experiences. So anyhow, I hope I did okay on time. That was a lot.
Notice from her talks, she does use collage and incorporate it for her paintings. The workshop is from 12 to 3. Sometimes they stay a little longer because everyone gets really excited with the workshops. But you do need to sign up at the front desk. I'm not sure how many spots are left over, but you're more than welcome to attend. I'd also like to introduce the president of our college, Dr.
Good afternoon, everybody. It's great to be here. An incredible work with her. This is my type of art, abstract art, modern art. This is phenomenal. And a remarkable exhibition you had here in my collection. And we salute for what you've done here. This is a great, it inspires creativity and at the same time modernism. And I'm sure you already explained your perspective. I'm just leaving mine on there. We're very impressed. And again, here at Laredo College, of course, I have to speak up very quickly. This is my 10-second elevator pitch. We're glad that we see students engage in what we do, which is to make sure that you learn well and finish strong. This is what we do at Laredo College, to make sure all of our students succeed in every aspect of their life. And our goal is for you to continuously learn and relearn and come back for other type of credentials. We are specializing, of course, in science and in technology. We are at the cutting edge of all industries here to meet your needs and the demands of your learning, of course, of industry throughout Laredo. And again, thank you for coming for this exhibition, and all of you, you're always welcome to Laredo College, and please continue coming to our events and exhibitions. Thank you very much, and I look forward to seeing you again.
Our faculty, you can help me with the chair.